Welcome everyone. My name is Tashiana Page, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Urin Ferndale, who is a highly respected and knowledgeable member of our community. He has accepted challenging careers over the span of his career, and sometimes those roles have forced him to step outside of the IO discipline. But nevertheless, his passion and commitment for the work has always kept him grounded in industrial psychology. In this conversation, we'll explore his professional journey and the key lessons he's learned along the way. Urin, thank you for joining me, and I'm so excited to be talking with you today.
It's a great pleasure. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you so much. So tell us, Urin, where did it all start? What forced you to end up being an IOP?
Well, when I started my academic journey nearly 4 decades ago, so now I'm sure everyone knows how old I am, I was unaware that the profession such as an IOP even existed. The idea of becoming an IOP was never presented to me during conversations with teachers, and there was no role models at the time in the field of IOP to me. And I think that hasn't changed significantly today. A lot of people still don't know about the profession of IOPs. Despite that, I enjoyed my studies because I've had that as a subject, and as I progressed through my studies, my awareness of IOP as a profession slowly developed. So after completing my master's degree, I started a career at the research organization, but I quickly realized that I'm not yet prepared to pursue an academic path. So this led me to join a manufacturing and mining company as a personnel officer. That's what they called them those years. It's like officer. I hate that word, personnel officer. I hated that title at the time. In any case, but I worked alongside a very, very experienced IOP. He was actually my boss. So during that time, I was really exposed to the world of IOP, and I participated in various development projects, organizational change projects, employee engagement projects, etc. And then I began to recognize the significant impact that IOPs can have on business performance. And that excited me. However, because I was exposed through my studies to so many things, so different parts of industrial psychology and human behavior and organizations, I also felt that I should experience some of the other parts of human resources and industrial psychology. And I liked labor relations because my master's dissertation was actually on the role of unions. So I requested a transfer to the labor relations department as a labor relations advisor. And I also asked for a transfer into some of the other specialist areas. And I quickly realized during my time there that the IOP function is normally secondary compared to the HR generalist. The specialist functions in general is actually secondary to the HR generalist function. And that is sometimes worse, the impact that they can have if the head of HR is not an IOP, because they don't actually appreciate the value that IOP can actually bring to the party. So that realization at the time lessened my enthusiasm for pursuing an IOP internship. And I've decided at the time I'm rather going to pursue my doctorate. And then I'm also going to join another company, one of the biggest beer brewer and company in South Africa. I think everyone knows who that is. And focusing on race relations, on employment equity issues, racial harmony, and all sorts of other things. And that was very opportune at the time and very exciting because, as you've indicated earlier, employment equity legislation came in around in the mid-90s, and that was more or less that time. So many organizations were quite interested or felt compelled to actually deal with these issues. And there was also the transition into democracy at the time. So So I was appointed as employment equity manager at South African breweries at the time. And so I did a lot of things that I believe that made a meaningful contribution to organizations and to the disadvantaged individuals, because of my background as a behavioral scientist in my training, I could actually understand and deal with the issues of stereotypes, racism, et cetera, et cetera. And that realization that actually my training as an IOP, but I was not registered at the time, was actually quite useful, because I don't think I could have done all of these things if I didn't have the training that I did. And so this renewed faith in in IOPs led me to complete my internship at a logistics company. And it's at the same logistics company I was appointed eventually as a HR executive. Now, so that's how I've landed, did my internship and landed eventually in a generalist role, because the reason why I've chosen the generalist role is because of my experience in my first company, that you don't have the same level of clout if you're actually not the generalist. And that's why I thought I will become a generalist, and then hopefully I will have the same clout. You wanted to say?
No, so I'm just curious, fast track to how you ended up moving into a more generalist role where you stepped out of IOP. I think I'm pretty curious around that transition.
Yeah, no, it's basically just based on my observation that the IOP and or any of the other specialists, whether you're a labor relations person or a recruitment person, doesn't really matter, that they don't have the same level of authority in organizations to make decisions. They need to present things to the HR director or manager. And if that HR director is actually not have a deep understanding of HR and people processes, and many of them don't, then you actually have all these nice ideas, but you can't get it to be implemented, because the HR director, because of his or her ignorance, will not take this project further, will not present this project to the next level of line management. So, that was that's when I decided, well, I think I can make a quicker and a better impact if I actually get into a generalist role. So I didn't pursue then the specialist roles, because there were specialist roles, to become a OD manager or head of assessment centers and all sorts of other things. But I thought, based on what I've seen, that's gonna frustrate me. So then that's why I moved into a generalist role. Now, my perception is that has changed over the years, but a large part of that perception still exists currently in organizations. And unless you will find if the IOP is of the HR generalist or the HR director is a IOP, then they've got a little bit more understanding of the things that actually needs to be done. That's my experience in any case.
Okay, thanks.
So, no problem. And
thanks
so
for
my
sharing
experience as an IOP in a generalist position, in my view, significantly influenced the role of HR in the logistics company which I joined. It was my understanding that my deep insights into people and organizational behavior, because of that, I was in a better position to assist the company with productivity challenges and dealing with issues like retrenchments in a more humane manner, rather than just according to a legislative process. For instance, typically, in the time I'm talking about 30 years ago now or so, the industrial relations was managed in a way that, this is the law, we go follow the steps of the law, and you actually retrenched. There was no focus on providing counseling to the individuals, no issues in terms of CV writing. They didn't think about the phases of trauma that the people actually going through, etc. So as a generalist that was also an IOP, I actually implemented some of those initiatives for the people that we've retrenched. In fact, I most probably established one of the first career transition centers in South Africa, because we had mass retrenchments, where people can actually go to a specific place where we help them with their CVs. We have free telephone lines that they can phone headhunters. We put the headhunters there, etc., etc. Oh, proper transition center. Unique theme. Nowadays, this is less of an issue, because I think more and more companies realize they can't just dump people purely because the law says you must follow certain procedures. So, and I think that's another way where your IOPs bring a different dimension to almost all the different functions, whether it's industrial relations or whether it's assessments or training, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think because of my deep understanding of human behavior, it was quite useful to assist the business in communicating what required changes, what should be communicating in terms of change, in terms of the business turnaround. Because the company that I worked for was in need for a serious business turnaround. In my view, and that I might be a little biased, if not really biased, but my view is there's no person better equipped to deliver messages of change than a well-trained IOP. And I think that I get a feeling that many of our IOPs, they feel a little inferior. They're so well qualified, don't come out for it. It's almost like introverts, and they've got so much to offer, and they must use that to their advantage. And that's one of the things and one of the lessons that I've learned over the years, is that we almost choose to be the backroom guys, and we don't have to, because we actually have very, very deep skills that no other HR person actually has.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Urin, I want to move on to what maybe just share some of the challenges that you've experienced over your career.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So the so I'm trying to do it in a form of just the different phases of my career and some of the challenges that I've experienced in these different levels. And so my next big a change of a job was actually when I was appointed as HR director on the board of one of the biggest fashion retailers in South Africa. And that was quite unique at the time, because normally HR people will not be on the board. Nowadays, it's actually more, it happens quite often. So it was very unusual. However, the company was in distress, and the new CEO wanted to actually get a person, wanted to employ a person that can actually assist him to become an employee of choice, so that he can attract the best talent, and he wanted employees to be engaged. And he asked me at the time, how will I do that? I said, well, if you give me 40% of the goals of people should be on people, then we can actually pull it off. He gave me 50%. So 50% of the performance reviews of managers was actually on people. And that was unheard of at the time. So I could see that the CEO was very committed to the people dimension. He believed that if we turned around the people, get them engaged, then the business will actually flourish. So I immediately surrounded myself with some of the best HR talent around. And the way that I've employed most of these HR people, most of them had at least an honors degree, and many of them actually had master's degrees, were IOPs. And because my view is that we need to employ people with a deep understanding of HR processes. I established a recruitment center, and the recruitment center was headed up by an IOP. Established an organizational development center, and we appointed an IOP to run it. I appointed a training training and academy, and I appointed an IOP to run that as well. Notably, so by the way, two of the past SIOPSA presidents, Ruwain Kok and Dr. Andrew Johnson, both worked for me at that organization in various capacities. And because I really regarded IOPs as key for business performance and success in HR. And it really worked. Within 3 years after we started with our efforts, we were one of the top 10 best companies to work for in South Africa and the best company to work for in retail. And the reason why we could achieve that so quickly, in my view, was because the IOPs played a very important role in do things in a tactically and way because of the deep understanding of people's issues. Now, coming back to your question in terms of some of the challenges that we experienced. Now, one of the most important lessons that I've learned as an HR director and as an IOP is that the credibility of HR and IOPs increases substantially when they demonstrate a strong understanding of the business. If the business perceives them as that they lack operational understanding, then they will actually not be pulled in. And the initiatives that they will embark upon will actually be doubted. Now, the IOPs and HR may actually be experts in their areas. They know the theories, etc. However, they will never be successful or will never get the credibility that they deserve if they don't understand the business. Now, many people say, well, an HR person can work in any company. They can work in banking, they can work in mining, etc. because HR is HR. HR is not HR. Every company is actually different. They've got different processes, different ways of operating, and you need to adapt your HR processes to that company's requirements. To give you a simple example, and I'm trying to share this because this is what worked for me, and hopefully this is something that some of the IOPs that will listen to this tape are also going to try to do. When I was actually at the logistics company, I was at least I took 1 day a week for me to actually be in the business. I physically got into a truck with the truck drivers, and I assisted them dropping off the parcels at the different places, carry the boxes, etc. I talked to the drivers, understanding what are the issues, understanding why they're driving slow, etc. All of those things. And I was in the warehouse, moving the boxes, scanning the boxes, etc. When I was in the fashion industry, I was in the stores. I physically was behind the counter. I interacted with the customers. I was selling the clothes on the floor. I was in the stock rooms, etc. So I had a deep understanding as an HR professional and an IOP of what the business was about. So when you interface with the business, they know that you actually understand the business. And so if you give them projects to do to enhance productivity, etc., they're not going to think twice because they know that you understand what you're talking about. And I think the problem that we have with many IOPs, they know their jobs, their theories, but they don't understand the businesses in which they operate, and that's why they can't get credibility. So that's one of the big obstacles that I've experienced initially in terms of line managers didn't really accept us. You were like a HR, to a large extent, even today, it's like a grudge purchase. It's like insurance. You need to have it, but if you can live without it, you will live without it, but you need to have it. So HR is the same. You don't really want HR, but you have it because you need someone to fire people and do all sorts of other things. And that's not the way that HR wants to be perceived, or they must be a real business partner that can help the business to become to perform better. So many HR IOPs stick to the IOP world. I want to encourage them to move into operate into a generalist position because they will have more clout, more control. And the way that I did it, I moved into the generalist position, but I employed a lot of other IOPs, and basically flooded the organization with IOPs. But the other option that not many IOPs have taken up is actually to move out of the HR world, to move into operations, to become a general manager, and even become a CEO. I was very lucky that these opportunities were presented to me, and I actually took advantage of them. But because if you're on the other side, if you now suddenly as an IOP become a line manager, you understand, you integrate, you're involved in the business, and you need to solve business issues, but you've got an IOP mentality and understanding of issues and people, and it's so much easier to bring things together. You don't have to go through 20 processes to make a decision whether you're going to use an IOP or HR interventions to actually enhance operational processes. You're basically in control. And I think that is something that I think more and more IOPs should consider as they advance in their careers.
So, Urin, two things.
So that covers that, and now we can. I guess there's some. You want to ask questions on the challenges?
No, so there's two things that I'm just taking away from what you've shared so far is there's a call to action for IOPs to become generalists, and the way they can do that is by getting to walk the floor, understanding the business at a grassroots level, understanding how the business actually operates, but then translating that into HR speak. When you communicate with decision makers around changes that needs to happen that would benefit the organization. So that's the one thing I'm hearing, and I think that also builds on the issue of gaining credibility with business leaders, is that if you understand the business at the grassroots level, you will then in turn gain credibility, and people would want to listen to your input.
Yeah, no, that's a good summary.
Thanks for that.
And then the other challenge that, apart from some of the things that I've talked about, that both HR and IOP still experiencing, and I've touched on that, is the fact that the IOPs are perceived as theoretical because they've got these advanced qualifications, they've got master's degrees. And then secondly, they're actually psychologists. Psychologists is like, people are scared of these people. So it is our responsibility as IOPs to demonstrate this benefits IOPs bring through their deep understanding of human behavior. And more importantly, to show a solid grasp of the business dynamics. So, and that's where actually the discussion came in, where I actually said, be out there, get into the trucks, be on the floor, etc. Because then people will see you. You're not this psychologist that you need to be scared of. You're not this theoretical person. You can actually bring this things into the world of work. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's the big thing is around our credibility and the fact that we're perceived as theoretical, etc. So we need to address that. And there is easy ways. Well, the examples that I've given you is actually not difficult things to do to address that credibility.
Yeah. I think in one of my roles in corporate, we were required to spend a month's training in the restaurant to fully understand the operations. What happens when you receive the stock, what happens when you need to prepare the meals, the turnaround times in executing the meals, managing the whole drive-through process of delivering the meals to the customers. So that was, and we had this phrase that we spoke about walking the floor. That was the phrase that we used in our HR team. Tell me, what advice would you give to BIOPS who are at different stages in their careers?
Well, my view is if you've just started as an IOP, try to get exposure to all different facets of HR, or all the different disciplines in terms of recruitment and organizational development, training, and all sorts of other things. And then based on your personality, because I don't think we're all outgoing people. Some people are introverts, and so they don't like to be, out there because a generalist normally are a little bit more extroverted. But make a decision rather sooner than later whether you actually want to be a generalist or a specialist. Because the sooner you can actually move into a generalist role, the better. You can always step back and become a specialist. It's harder actually if you become a deep specialist, say in recruitment, and then after 15 years you decide, now I want to do a generalist job. It's just much harder to step out. However, if you've been a generalist and after 15 years you want to go and do recruitment, it's easier for you to step into a recruitment role as a specialist because you've covered all of those as a generalist. I'm obviously biased towards the generalist role, but there is a space obviously for those that the personality is not aligned with being a generalist. The other area that I would encourage young Black IOPs to consider is to find and identify a mentor. I didn't have the luxury of that, and it was very hard. There are not many Black psychologists out there. Obviously, you can go to any psychologist. The person doesn't have to be Black. But my experience is that unfortunately, after 30 years in democracy, there's still a lot of racism and resistance in organizations. And especially in HR departments. And you need to actually talk to someone that has experienced some of these covert relations, covert racism, and all these other negative resistance issues in companies, because then this more senior Black IOP can then share with the younger IOP how to deal with some of these issues. I've had one or two mentees which, when they told me about all the stuff that they're going through, and I was able to assist them because I went through the same stuff. And I know we don't really want to talk about these things as Black IOPs, but we all know that these things are happening. And for the young IOPs, our job is to make sure that they get through that first couple of years, and therefore they must look for mentors, and then we should actually provide that support for them. That's the two main things that I can recommend for them.
Okay. So that is when you're kind of starting out in your career. And for more seasoned IOPs, BIOPS, what advice would you share with them?
I think the more experienced ones, the mid-career IOPs, I think they should focus on understanding the business. I mean, no one doubts the technical skills because they've got a master's degree. And that links back to what I've talked about earlier about credibility. They need to actually shake this stereotypes off in terms of that IOPs are theoretical, et cetera. So, and then they should actually do some of the things that I recommended earlier, is actually to go out of their way to make sure that they understand the business. Go and visit stores if they're in a retail with regional managers, et cetera. Learn from them, et cetera. And it's the line managers. If you can actually talk with them, you bump into them on a Monday morning, and you actually tell them, because in a fashion retail industry, the numbers is available every Monday morning in terms of what happened the weekend. So HR people don't even look at that. I looked at that, and that's just a small example. You look at it and you bump into the ops director, and you say, oh, I see the sales was a bit low this weekend. What happened? So suddenly this person realized, but you're actually looking at the numbers. So you've got an interest in the numbers. Your credibility immediately goes through the roof, and you'll do a lot more things with that operations person because you show an understanding and interest in the business. That's the one thing. The second thing is the mid-career IOPs, Black IOPs in particular, should make themselves available as mentors for the up-and-coming, the emerging psychologists. So that way, they need a little bit of a hand, and these your mid-career psychologists, at least they've advanced in their career, and they should actually assist these up-and-coming psychologists.
Thanks for that. What is your hope for the future of the IOP profession or for the future of IOPs in general?
Yeah, before I answer that question, I also want to briefly talk about, have a comment on the senior Black IOPs, because we've got a couple of them around, and they've got a very, very important role to play as well, because they are in senior positions in companies, either as an HR director or as a senior IOP or a group organizational development manager or whatever. So many of our senior IOPs are actually gatekeepers. They actually not enhancing and getting more Black IOPs into more senior roles. So the role of a senior Black IOP is to be creators of opportunities for other Black IOPs. And I don't think that is happening as quickly and as widely as it should. And I think that's something that the senior Black IOP should be thinking about. What are they doing to really enhance and accelerate the development and provide opportunities for other Black IOPs, and not just keeping the gate closed, because they on that side now they don't want more people to come in. And unfortunately, that's quite rife in South Africa, and especially amongst the Black. This is not true only about IOPs. It's the same in terms of senior engineers, senior CEOs, and all of that. They're not allowing creating more opportunities for others Black people to come through, and that's actually we should be ashamed of ourselves about that. But talking about, yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. I think it's it's not just about guarding the gate. It's about watching or allowing who should come through the gate. Right now, they're just guarding the gate, and there's no access, so they're keeping the gates closed. But I think it's about watching who should come through the gate.
Yeah.
That's the image that comes to my mind about the seasoned IOPs.
Yeah. So, and then talking about the future of IOPs, well, the world of work has changed dramatically in the last 20 or so years, and especially in the last 5 years or so. Obviously, AI is now on everyone's lips, and that's going to dramatically impact on the way that we're going to do our work going forward. So IOPs will have to go out of their way to strive for continued relevance in the workplace. They need to position themselves as the go-to professionals for advice on people practices. And I think we're not there yet. We've tried, I think, over the years through SIOPSA to professionalize the IOP profession. But we need to get to the point where if people want to know anything about people, about and people behavior, organizational development issues, talent management, etc., we should be the go-to people where they go to, and we're not at this point in time. So that is the one thing that I hope that IOPs will get their house in order, so that they can be regarded as this center of excellence, but essentially for HR. And then the second thing that I'm concerned about, and which I hope for it will change in the near future, is the fact that Black IOPs are still very much underrepresented as IOPs. And this has been, as I've said earlier, been like this for many, many decades. Now, my view is that we cannot credibly advise on transformation or best practices in terms of employee engagement and change and all of these other nice things if we fail to apply these same principles that we want to communicate to businesses and to HR people. We can't apply those principles in our own ranks because if we had applied some of these principles that we're communicating as consultants and as IOPs to businesses in terms of change, in terms of employment equity, etc., and we don't apply it in our own ranks, then we essentially fail. We're actually not as good as we think we are. So it is therefore a collective responsibility to accelerate the transformation of the IOP profession as a matter of urgency. Or in my view, we will risk becoming perpetually irrelevant. And if we don't change that, because as I said, I've been out of SIOPSA for quite a while, and I returned about 5 years ago to participate and to help a little. And very little has happened in the last 5 years in terms of the change in terms of Black IOPs and changing of SIOPSA itself. And so we will become irrelevant if we can't actually get our own house in order. And so that should be a priority for the IOP profession. And obviously that will be largely guided by SIOPSA. And because they need to pull the people together and find and forge a way forward.
Okay. So, Urin, what is the call to action
Sounds a little bit
for
dramatic,
IOPs?
But that is my view. Sorry, yeah.
What is the call to action for the IOPs? What are you asking them to do?
I think my view, and I know there's a lot of people that have a different view. My view is that as soon as you've got numbers, a critical mass of black IOPs, things will change much quicker. Now, we've been stuck at 30% for the last 5 years or so since I've rejoined SIOPSA. So we need to find ways to accelerate the number of Black IOPs out there. And that will already help. Now, we can do all these other things, workshops and talking about white fears and all of those other things, which it's useful, but it's not going to bring you more IOPs, Black IOPs. And I think so we need to actually fundamentally relook at the way that we look at accelerating the growth of Black IOPs. Now, so I know SIOPSA is assisting and starting to work on interns, because many of the Black IOPs or master's students can't get internships, as an example. So what are we doing to actually get them internships? And because there are master's degree students, they just can't get internships, etc. So we need to get a critical mass of Black people through to become IOPs, and that will change the dynamics somewhat. And we can work simultaneously on all these other fuzzy things, which is important, like dealing with fears of whites and also then the superior complexes and inferior complexes and all of that stuff, stereotyping stuff. We can go all sorts of workshops and stuff, but that shouldn't be the main focus in my view. The main focus is to actually get more people in. And so that's my call of action. I think we must find a way to get more IOPs registered as IOPs and then push them through the organizations.
So it's about visibility of IOPs, the Black IOPs, and reinforcing those measures in terms of how we're going to accelerate the development in the profession.
Yeah.
Great.
Anything else that you want me to touch on?
No, I think that's it, Urin. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. I appreciate the fact that you spoke about IOPs becoming generalists. I didn't quite understand it in the beginning, but now I think my understanding is much richer in terms of we need to get back to basics in terms of understanding the business. And that's always been something that I had seen in corporations is when you partner with a business and you understand what happens on the floor, be it the retail floor, the logistics floor, there's an appreciation for you as a professional, and you become the first point of call around people issues that they bring to you. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm glad that I could participate, and hopefully this will help a little. And I'm also more than happy if, at a mutually convenient time, if we have some junior IOPs, in a room to talk to them a little, to, about my experiences, the things that I've done well and things that I didn't do well. Because if they can just see that there are Black senior IOPs out there that actually did not too badly, and they could be the next one. And because we need to create those role models. I didn't have that role models when I was growing up. So
Yeah.
and they now have the advantage of having role models, and we should actually put them in front of those role models and have this discussions with them. But
I think
happy
I'm
that
going to
you've
call
taken
you.
on this task. You and Saira and them are doing a great job, sort of keeping this thing alive.
Thank you.
I'm really,
Yeah.
very, very happy about that.
I think I'm going to call you the IOP whisperer, because you just made me realize that you had two past SIOPSA presidents that worked with you and you mentored them in a way, not necessarily towards becoming presidents, but you mentored them in their careers. I'm going to call you the IOP whisperer.
Well,
Urin,
it's very easy to work with people that are very, very competent, because both of them are very, very competent. But I've learned a lot from them, and hopefully they've learned a few things from me as well when they were working for me. But I was very, very privileged for them to have worked with me.
Thank you so much, Urin, for sharing your time, your insights, and your experiences with us today. It's been incredibly valuable to hear about the lessons you've learned along the way. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of this conversation.